Okay, in this video we're going to talk about how to import data into Excel from other sources. And when you're talking about importing data, the first thing you want to do is go to your Data tab here. And you're going to be in this section, the Get and Transform Data section. And you have a lot of options, but we're going to cover two of the most common ones. And the first one is right here, from text or comma-separated values file. And a comma-separated values file is going to look like this. This is just a notepad file, and you can see that we have all this information in here, and it looks like it's just jammed in there. But if you look closely, you'll see that each of the text strings are identified by quotes on either side, and then there's a comma separating each piece of text. So we have Bob in quotes, comma, Blake in quotes, comma, his phone number in quotes, because that counts as text, comma, then the number 1, which is his office number. And then you can see it continues down the list, but it's all organized by these commas separating each value or each cell. And that's called a delimiter. The comma is a delimiter. And delimiters can be other things like spaces too, but in this case we're using the comma as the delimiter. So let me go ahead and minimize this, and we'll go back to our Data tab, and we'll go ahead and click on From Text or CSV File. Now I'm going to go find that document. It's right here, and it brings up a dialog box for us. And you can see it's giving us a preview of the information. And remember how we had the first name Bob, and then there was a comma, and then Blake, and then a comma? We'll see how Excel has read each of those commas as a break between columns. So all of our information is now nicely arranged in a table. And there are a couple of choices here along the top. The file origin we just leave. This section gives us a choice of the delimiter, and in this case they were separated by commas, so we'll leave that. But there are other options you can see: colon, equal sign, semicolon, space, tab, etc. And you'll notice if I select one of these, colon for example, now it's clumping all of our information into one column because it doesn't find any colons in there. If these were separated by colons instead of commas, then it would break it up nicely into columns like it did. But since it's not finding any of those, it's just clumping it all together. And when we go back to defining the comma as the delimiter, you can see it breaks it up nicely. We can also leave this based on the first 200 rows. It just wants to know which data we should use for it to determine the layout. And if we wanted to, we could say based on entire data set, but in this case it doesn't really matter. And then we have some options. We could cancel, edit, or load, and we want to load it into our worksheet here. Now we can just click load and it will just load it, or we can do the drop down and say load to. That's going to bring up another dialog box and give us some more options. So you can see the default settings are for it to create a table out of our data and put it into a new worksheet. So that would create a worksheet number 2 and place it into a new blank worksheet. Now if we wanted to put it into this worksheet, then we could just change this to existing worksheet. You'll notice now it's giving us a location where it's going to put it, and it's highlighting that there. Now if I wanted to change this location, like bring it down a little bit, I can go ahead and minimize this, and then I can use the arrow keys to move it, or I can just select a spot with my mouse and my cursor. That'll select a new spot, and you can see it's now identifying that cell. You can maximize this again and double check everything. And then when I'm ready, I just click OK. And it's dropped it into our existing worksheet at the spot where we chose to put it. And it's formatted it as a table. You'll also notice that the queries and connections pane comes up over here, and it gives us a little preview and some options to modify this connection. Okay, so that's importing from a text or CSV file. Let's go ahead and go to the Get Data drop down and click on that. And you'll see we can also do a text or CSV file here. But let's do this import from another Excel workbook. So we click on that. I'm going to do a search to find my file, and there it is. I click on that. And now you see we have a slightly different dialog box here. because in this Excel file we have several different tables that we can choose from. And if we click on some of these, you'll see, for instance, if we click on the offices table, you'll see it gives us a preview, and what that table contains is office ID numbers, city, state, and phone number. We also have our employees table here, which has some employee information. And then we have this employees import table, which if you look at this one, it's cleaned up a little bit. So we've set this one up to import. This one has some blank sections here and an extra column, whereas this one's been cleaned up. So this is the one we'd want to use. But the important thing to remember from this dialog box is that you need to navigate to the specific worksheet that you want to import. You can preview it, and then of course we'll go to load again and load to. And in this case we're going to go to a new worksheet and click OK. And it brought the data in as a new worksheet. And again, it's formatted it as a table. And if we didn't want it to be formatted as a table, then we could go up to our table styles here, and we'll go to the design. This is under the design, the table tools design, and we'll go to the none formatting, change it to none, and then we can convert it back to a range. It's important to reformat this as none before you convert it to a range to get rid of any unwanted formatting. And then we just click convert to range. And you can see it's saying this will permanently remove the query definition from the sheet and convert the table to a normal range. Continue. This is basically just going to reset this as a normal range, but we already have our data pulled in, so that's fine. Click OK. And now we just have a normal range with our imported data. So those are two ways to import data. Again, we looked at bringing it in from a text or CSV, which is a comma separated values file. And then we also looked at going to the from file and from an existing Microsoft Excel workbook.